Festivities continue in the country today as well as people celebrate the bond between brothers and sisters on Bhai Tika today. Meanwhile, as the 5-day festival nears a conclusion, political parties will look to intensify their promotional campaigns that had to a great extent been at pause during the celebrations. Good morning, I'm Sarah Sapsanamma. Let's begin with the top stories of the hour. It's Bhai Tika today, the final day of the ongoing Tihar festival. Auspicious time for Bhai Tika determined at 11:37 a.m. Mainstream political parties lacking clarity in their agenda, leadership, working procedures and ideologies prioritize alliances to win elections. Protests continued in Iran 40 days since the death of Mahsa Amini. Iranian police fire on protesters as thousands gather near the grave of Amini. Barca suffer a 3-0 defeat at the hands of Bayern Munich on the night of Champions League exit. Liverpool sealed their spot in the last 16 with the same scoreline against Ajax. The fifth and the final day of the ongoing Tihar festival, known as Bhai Tika, that reveals the bond between brothers and sisters, is being celebrated across the country today. On this day, sisters offer rainbow-colored tika to their brothers. The auspicious time for Bhai Tika is at 37 minutes past 11 a.m. as per the Nepal Calendar Determination Committee. As per the age-old tradition, sisters offer rainbow-colored tika to their brothers on this day, while brothers in return offer gifts. Meanwhile, those who do not have brothers or sisters visit Balgopaleshwar temple in the capital's Rani Pokhari, and many also offer tika to one another. The temple opens to the public once a year on the occasion of Bhai Tika. Meanwhile, the Newar community across the country are also celebrating Kija Puja today. In our Public Voice segment, we had asked about how public are celebrating Bhai Tika. Let's take a look at what they had to say.
मिठा मिठा खानेकुराहरू खानी राम्रो राम्रो कपडा लगाएर
बहिनीहरूले खाना दिन्छन् दक्षिणा औँसीकै दिने अघि देखुन टिका टाला लगाइदिने
फुलमालाहरू ऐनिने अनि यताउता सबै तयारी भइराखेको छ
रमाइलो छ देउसी भैलो खेलिरहेछौँ अनि भोलि चाहिँ दिदी बहिनीहरूको प्रतीक्षामा छ
The Election Commission has published the final name list of the closed list of proportionate category of November 20 elections. According to the Commission, the final name list includes 5,907 candidates for the proportionate category of the provincial and parliamentary elections. 2,199 candidates will contest in the House of Representatives, while 3,708 candidates are named for the provincial assemblies. The Apex Election Authority has rejected the candidacy of 550 candidates. Mainstream political parties appear to be lacking clarity in their agenda, leadership, working procedures and ideologies. Despite being aware about the issues of public concern, the parties have not prioritized making improvements in their mode of operation as they are busy making strategies for electoral wins. With the November 20 provincial and parliamentary elections inching close, largest party in terms of success from the local elections and that of the ruling coalition Nepali Congress is yet to make public its electoral agenda. The path and principles ahead for Congress remain uncertain. The party leadership has also been alleged of failing to ensure unity and identifying a sound political direction. Members and cadres of the party, which was limited to 23 seats in the direct category of previous lower house election, are dissatisfied as the party is heading to the general elections on the basis of coalition instead of its own manifesto and agendas. Meanwhile, CPN-UML is also facing sharp criticism for its two efforts to unconstitutional dissolving of the House of Representatives. KP Sharma Oli-led party was involved in several scandals while leading the government. The local level election results are evidences to UML's deteriorating stature. It will be difficult for UML to dissect challenges, including the party's failure in ensuring implementation of the assurances made while leading the government. CPN Maoist Centre, which emerged as the largest party from the first Constituent Assembly election, has now been reduced to the third position and is compelled to form alliances to win in elections. CPN Unified Socialists, formed after the split of CPN-UML, is struggling to protect its political identity, while Madhesh-centered parties, Janata Samajwadi and Loktantrik Samajwadi, have also been facing their internal issues. And it's time now for our segment Public Pulse, where you text us with your opinion. The question is, what are the challenges of political parties for the elections? Your options are A, lack of voters' trust, B, no agenda, and C, questions on commitment. The voting is on. Type NEWS, select your option A, B or C and send it to 34001 to share your opinion with us. The state's revenue is in deficit as expenditure since mid-July is greater than revenue collection. The government has collected 220 billion rupees in revenue since mid-July. However, expenses for employee salary, allowances and pension have reached 237 billion rupees. The government has attributed the failure in using development budget and the restrictions imposed on imports as the reasons behind the deficit. This is the first time in 12 years the state has faced a revenue deficit. In the Nepali fiscal year 2067-68, current expenses had exceeded the revenue as 210 billion rupees was spent against 198 billion rupees revenue collected. The government has aimed at collecting 1,403 billion rupees in revenue this year. However, so far only 15.69% of the target has been met. Likewise, the government has spent 20% of its current expense target of 1,183 billion rupees. Government expenses in employee salary and allowances are high during Dashain and Tihar festivals. The government has allocated 380 billion rupees for development works. However, only 5.8%, which is 22 billion rupees, has been spent of it. Now, Nepali youths have been exploring employment destinations in Europe as an alternative to Malaysia and the Gulf nations. Most have been attracted to Malta, Portugal and Poland, as the countries have been offering permanent residence options after working for several years. According to the Department of Foreign Employment, between mid-May to mid-October, around 20,000 youths received their labour permits for 88 countries. Of them, over 5,000 were for Malta, Portugal and Poland. Portugal allows migrant workers the opportunity to apply for permanent residency and Portuguese passport to those who work in the country for 5 years. This has provided an alternative to youths who have returned from the Gulf nations and Malaysia. Due to growing demand for workers in agriculture and service sectors, European nations have opened doors for Nepalese youths, among others. However, applicants for short-term contracts have said they are struggling to get their permits from the government. Meanwhile, the government has clarified that it processes all applications with proper employment details, including salary and accommodations. However, adds that many with formal contracts too have been swindled in the past. The exodus of youths for foreign employment calls on the government to force necessary policies to address the lapses in domestic employment sector. Let's move on to the international update. Iranian police are reported to have fired on protesters in Saqqez, home city of Mahsa Amini, who died in custody after being arrested for allegedly wearing her hijab improperly. Thousands gathered near the grave of the Kurdish woman and clashed with security 40 days since her death. A rights group and witnesses said officers fired live rounds and tear gas at the crowds in the city. Protests swept across Iran after 22-year-old Amini died on 16th of September. She had been detained 3 days earlier by the morality police in the capital Tehran and fell into a coma after collapsing at a detention center. Videos showed thousands of mourners walking along a road, through a field and across a river to bypass roadblocks and reach the graveyard where Amini is buried. The crowds were heard shouting "Women, Life, Freedom and Death to the Dictator," two of the signature chants of the protest movement, as well as "Down with traitors" and "Kurdistan will be the graveyard of fascists." Australia has said it will deploy 70 soldiers to Britain to help train Ukrainian troops there and ship 30 more armoured vehicles to bolster Kyiv's war against Russia's invasion. The latest package takes Australia's support for Ukraine to about $425 million since the conflict began in February. Australia, one of the largest non-NATO contributors to the West's support for Ukraine, has been supplying aid and defense equipment and has banned exports of aluminium and aluminium ores, including bauxite, to Russia. It has also placed sanctions on hundreds of Russian individuals and entities. Thousands have been killed and homes and factories destroyed since Russian President Vladimir Putin ordered the invasion of Ukraine, which he calls a special military operation to rid its neighbor of extremists. Now, violence broke out in Bolivia during a protest against the government's decision to delay the 2023 census of population and housing. Clashes between the government's party, MAS supporters and protesters also took place in Santa Cruz's blocked streets. Demonstrators demand the government carry out the national census in 2023 instead of the postponed date of 2024. The government's decision drew ire from locals who say it undermines the region's budget. Tesla is under criminal investigation in the United States over claims that the company's electric vehicles can drive themselves. The U.S. Department of Justice launched the previously undisclosed probe last year following more than a dozen crashes, some of them fatal, involving Tesla's driver assistance system Autopilot, which was activated during the accidents. As early as 2016, Tesla's marketing materials have touted Autopilot's capabilities, and on a conference called that year, Elon Musk described it as probably better than a human driver. However, the company also has explicitly warned drivers that they must keep their hands on the wheel and maintain control of their vehicles while using Autopilot. The company has said its features do not make the vehicle autonomous. As part of the latest probe, Justice Department prosecutors in Washington and San Francisco are looking whether Tesla misled consumers, investors and regulators by making unsupported claims about its driver assistant technology's capabilities. That's all for the moment. Thank you for watching. Happy Bhai Tika.